Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the A24 Archive. This is the segment where I go through A24's career and watch the good and the bad and just the downright terrible. And the film I'm going to be talking about today falls into the downright terrible category. There have been a few films in A24's catalog that have been horrible to get through. The films like A Glimpse into the Mind of Charles Swan and Tusk, which were two films that I barely made it through. And this film is no exception. I barely made it through this piece of garbage. The movie I'm going to be talking about today is Revenge of the Green Dragons. Revenge of the Green Dragons is directed by Andrew Lau and Andrew Liu. A true immigrant story set against the vibrant backdrop of Flushing, New York in the 1980s and the 1990s. What do you say about this movie? It is just a hot, steaming pile of garbage. I can't imagine that this review is going to end up being very long because I really, genuinely don't have much to say about this. The fact that there's like a Martin Scorsese tag on this movie is kind of mind-blowing, and I have no idea how they managed to score Ray Liotta for this film. But the movie is about these two young boys who live in New York City in the Chinatown area, who they come over, they immigrate here, they were put together to live with this woman. I think it's very implied through the very horrible editing. And they grow up together, and this group called the Green Dragons is in New York, and there's all these gangs there, and all these young people end up getting instilled into these gangs, and the two of them end up getting initiated into this Green Dragons group, and then it jumps forward to present day, and it's all about these gang wars between these different groups, and the fighting that occurs, and the manipulation, and then the police trying to get involved. Ray Liotta's character especially, who is like seemingly this really overt racist person who's like, all these immigrants coming into the country and blah blah blah, and it's so ham-fisted and awful. And that's really the overall story to the film. The first problem I have with this movie is the narration. Oh my god, it's like a 16-year-old reading a book over top of like these really stupid vignettes, and it's like some of the dialogue in this movie is so cringeworthy. Like I was like laughing at points. It was just so bad. It was like this person watched like Goodfellas and Casino and all these Martin Scorsese movies, and they're like, oh man, I'm gonna make this really gritty crime drama, and it just comes across as really like juvenile. And that's what I put in my Letterboxd review. It really feels like a 16-year-old kid living out their like gang fantasy. There's no real like emotional depth to these characters either, and I feel like a lot of that is in part to the horrible editing in this film. I almost thought it was a joke at first. Like, the editing is so jarring from the beginning. You're just cutting from scene to scene to scene to scene, and then like in the scene you cut from like 100 different camera angles to where it's so hard to get invested into the characters and their story. The beginning first 20 minutes, it was an interesting enough idea that I was like, okay, I'm trying to get myself invested. But once it just kept going, and I was just like, I don't give a shit about anything that is happening because you haven't made these characters interesting. There's nothing to be empathetic towards these kids other than like, you introduced us to them at a young age, and we know that there was a struggle immigrating into the United States, and so you feel bad because they had to go through that, but there's really no more depth to these characters than that. There's nothing that makes you care about them. They just join this gang and start doing really horrible things, and you're like supposed to care just because. And I think that's what was difficult for me, is you've got to have these characters have some kind of depth. You have to have them be interesting in some way, and you have to have some people who can act, and these people are terrible. Some of their lines in the movie, I wish I would have jotted down a couple of the lines in this film that just made me like gawk laughing so hard. It's just really cheesy. And then there's like so many unnecessary scenes in this film. There's this one scene where they break in to like steal money from this family, and they like to get at this guy because he lies to them about where the money is. They like rape his daughter, and it just feels so slimy, and like in not a way that like shows people being bad just for being bad. It just felt like it was included for no reason, and it just made me feel really gross. And I don't know, like the movie just is really not well done. And then by the third act, I just honestly, like, there were all these little manipulations between different characters, and there was like, in your typical crime film, there was like double crossing each other. But by the end of the movie, I just didn't care. I just wanted it to be over. And then characters were dying and people were getting arrested, and I was like, I don't care about any of these people. I don't care about any of the settings. The cinematography is a mess because of how jarring the editing is. The score is really forgettable. I didn't care about this movie, and it's unfortunate because representation is so important in film, and I think that a movie about like Asian gangs in the 1980s and the 1990s is such a fascinating concept. I just think this movie really needed a better screenwriter and better direction, and if it got that, it would have been a way better experience. So have you seen Revenge of the Green Dragons? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this was one of the worst A24 films. It's definitely in my bottom 3 with Charles Swan and Tusk. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material, and I look forward to getting more out there for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.